I installed LED lighting behind this stone right here. Also back here. And I'm going to show you how I did it. Cue the music. La 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 la. Okay, all right, I'll stop. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how I installed the lighting behind this stone, and I'll explain every step of the way and how it works and why you should do it because it's great. Okay, so I'm going to start by mixing up some thin set. This thin set is going to go on the back of the niche because I need that niche to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to cut those wires, get them out of my way, go ahead and trowel that thing in the back. And I'm cutting some K-lath. So this K-lath right here is used to strengthen the thin set because I'm adding an inch to match the top line of the window. Now, I'm going to go over to the TV wall and let that thin set set. And I am going to cut the first sheet lighting. So in this case, I'm going to be splitting one wire into two runs. I'm going to be doing the left and right side. So I added a couple of wires together to another one and created a pigtail. This is essentially a Y. Twist the two wires together. Then I'll be using a solder connector. These are pretty cool. It's got a shrink wrap and solder built into it. So I'll show you how I heat these up and you can watch the solder melt and flow like a river of destiny. Alright, so I'm going to use this dustpan because I want the heat to radiate off of the heat gun, off of the metal, back up into the back side of the fitting. And that allows for a nice, even heating fitment. So I want to show you a close-up of how I twisted the wires together to create that Y. This is a solid gauge wire, 18 gauge. And what I'm going to do is twist two wires together, take that third wire and bend the tip. I'm going to create a hook that I can set behind that splice of wires and then use it to twist, following the lines and the smooth, beautiful curves of those two wires. And I'm going to twist those together, tighten it up, and that way these connections will never come apart. That's the way it goes. Okay, stop messing around, dude. Sorry, man. It's just Mr. Stop's one-stop shop. It's what I do. It's just me. Okay, hear me out. I'm kind of new to these connectors. Maybe used them for a few months here and there. And I didn't realize that gravity is not my friend. I got it so hot that the solder not only melted onto the wires, but melted outside into the rubber coating, and it exposed the solder. So, anyway, I turned it over, try and melt it so it would go back down, but it did not. So let's be safe and let's add another layer of shrink wrap. I want these connections to be tight. I want them to be tighter than my pants after 3 chocolate cakes that I knew I shouldn't have eaten. I told you not to eat them cakes. Yeah, but I was hungry, so what do you want me to do? Alright, I'm getting a little bit crazy here, but that's okay. We're all here to have fun. As you're sitting and watching the beautiful heat shrink wrap, you can hear me rant. After I stop ranting, I'm going to continue to set these wires. I want to make sure that I have a nice, good, solid splice connection, something that won't come apart if you pull on it. And then I will heat shrink those fittings, melt the solder onto the wire, continue with the other one as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some more shrink tubing on top of that connection. In the end, it is a solid, good-looking connection that nobody's ever going to see, but at least I know that that is never coming apart. It's a lot better than just wire nutting some stranded wire to solid wire and expecting it to work. Things happen, and I really don't want to have to open up the walls to get to this. Once I'm done shrink wrapping it, I'm able to push that lead back into the wall, and I now have 4 beautiful solid wires that are coming out that I can easily stick into the sheet lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and strip the heads of these wires about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 5/16 of an inch. And that way it'll fit inside of the connectors on these sheet lightings. So I already cut this one, and I think it looks good to go. So I'm going to start peeling the backing off of the double-sided tape. It's got individual rows, and they do this because you can cut these sheets at any width or any length that you like. So they do this to make sure that you have good, solid, double-sided tape on the back. Now it's pretty strong, so most substrates, it's really going to stick well, so make sure you get it lined up perfectly, and then you can push down on it. Just give it a few pats, and then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next piece. This one I'm going to have to cut the top off, but I just want to make sure that I've got good lines for everything. It seems like 4 sheets on each side will work for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark this exactly where I need it, and I'm going to cut it with a pair of scissors. Very easy. There is a picture of a pair of scissors where you can cut. So make sure that you're cutting on that line. Same idea, you're going to be pulling the double-sided tape off the back and sticking it on. And see, I did all that prep work and it seemed like a lot of extra work, but in this case, I was able to plug it in and turn it on. I didn't have to mess with it any more than I really needed to. And at this point, it is just rinse and repeat. Mark the height, the length, make sure everything is exactly as you want it to be. This is that double-sided tape we're just going to stick on down after you make your cut. It's pretty simple. After this, like I said, rinse and repeat. You're going to be cutting the new piece, you're going to be sticking it on. You're going to be cutting the new piece, you're going to be sticking it on. And this is a lot easier when you have a countertop, but even on the wall, because of the double-sided tape, it really makes the job quick and simple. I have these small leads that I attach between each clip, and I'll explain that in a little bit of a close-up later. And at this point, it is wham bam, thank you ma'am. Look at those lights. Gosh, that's beautiful. So I'm going to switch over. This thin set has now set. I'm going to be installing the wiring to the lighting just like I did on the TV wall. But just to be sure that I have the right connections before I cut everything up, I'm going to be testing a singular strip of a cutoff. And I want to turn on the light and see if it works. So in this case, it did not work. I had to go back and switch those wires because I had the hot on the negative and the negative on the hot. Not a big deal. This is why I tested it first. I know. I'm an idiot. But it's okay because I may be an idiot, but indeed I am no fool. That's why I test things multiple times before I close them up. I want to make sure everything is good to go. I know it's not really a big deal, but once that sticky sheet is attached to the wall, it's a lot harder to get those wires. Oh my goodness, it works. Okay, well now I am confident and happy. I know which orientation the wires need to go in. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the sticky sheets. Wait a minute, I got to put that shrink wrap first. This is inside of a shower, so I'm using waterproof heat shrink tubing. That makes sure that our connections will not be affected. But I'll be completely honest, I don't know if this sheet lighting is rated for wet surfaces. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Everything's going to be okay because it's going to be covered up by stone. Beautiful onyx stone. Look at these lights. I hope that this gives you a nice understanding of how to install lights, although now that I'm watching the video and editing it and doing a voiceover, I'm not sure if it is really that educational. So because I want to do better at all points in my life, I recorded a little walkthrough in person after this was all installed, and I explained how I did it and how the wiring works, and maybe a few tips and tricks that you can catch along the way. In the end, this turned out to be a really good project, but stay tuned because I'm about to sit down with you and explain the little details without just rushing through and doing silly voiceovers and talking about nonsense. How's that? You think that'll work for the mic? Hopefully that comes in nicely. Okay, so basically what we have here is we have high voltage wiring. This high voltage wiring is going to be connected with a standard switch, the type of switch you would turn on and off for lights, right? So when you flip the switch on, what you're doing is you're sending 120 volts of power, which is standard house power, to an attic or a crawl space or someplace that you can mount this. This is called a driver, or also known as a transformer. So we have the input is going to be 120 volts, and then the output is going to be 24 volts. These specifically take 24 volts. So power comes from the main breaker panel to the switch, You flip the switch, it then sends high voltage power to the box. After it gets to the box with that high voltage power, when you flip that switch, the low voltage power comes out. And those are the little wires we have coming out of the walls. We have some more over here. It's just a thin gauge wire going from the attic or crawl space onto the lights. Okay, now you know how to get the power from the switch to the transformer to the lights. Well, now what do? Well, basically, these strip lights or sheet lights have these small connectors on each one. And so I've got a couple of cutoffs here. And as you can see, we've got these little connectors, and they are all over the place. You see right here and here and here and here. And what we do is we use this to connect small wires, and these are actually provided with this kit. And basically all you have to do is take your wiring and go ahead and pop it in. And that's good to go. And the cool thing about these little guys is you can use them to connect multiple sheets. So just as I did up there by connecting these 6 sheets, you just pop the wires right in. Now you don't want to have a gap because you will see that through your stone. So you could, similar to what I did up there, just bend the wire, try and do it a little more clean, so that your LED, I guess these are called diodes, are going to be close to each other. And that'll give you a nice, consistent light behind whatever you're lighting up. So this last little snippet, I want to get you guys a close-up. These little bumpers here, what that does is it sticks out, so that way when you set your stone, the stone is not directly touching the LEDs or these clips. So this here is how I did the wiring when I wanted to attach the two. I used those pins, and I could have cut the wires short, but honestly, you don't see them, it doesn't shine through, and it looks perfectly fine. And you risk, if you cut them short, you risk cutting them too short and them not being all the way into the pin connector. So here's another option. It all depends on the spacing between the lights, but yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. Just make sure that all your connections are good and you test them all out, because once you put that stone, you ain't ever taking it out again. This is the piece that we'll be installing on top of that TV wall mount. It's the box that we built out. We have all the LED lights, and that's going to be the upper piece. This right here is the lower piece. And if you've made it this far in the video, I must have done a really good job. Or maybe not. But please leave in the comments below any questions or concerns you may have. If you want to do this on your house or you just enjoy watching, like, subscribe, share this video. I'm trying to get better at editing and voiceovering and doing the whole deal, but I'm new at this, so be gentle. Make sure you like and subscribe.